Okay, thank you for that. November 6, 2024 City Council meeting for the city of Gerhart is called to order. Does anyone have a declaration of conflict of interest?
No.
No. Okay, first off and foremost, this is Councilor Fackrell's last meeting. She has been with us for 8 years, and I'd like to give her a round of applause. Thank you, Rita. It's been a pleasure having you as my president of the council the last 2 years, and it's been my pleasure to serve with you for the last 8 years.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on. Anyone want to make a motion for the regular meeting, October 2nd, 2024 meeting minutes?
I move we accept the minutes of the regular meeting of the city council Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024.
Second,
Oh, second.
any discussion, any questions, any corrections?
Just on page 4, second line from the bottom, where they want a family focus, I think there should have been an ED, it's just a simple typo. Should be family focused event, I believe,
Okay, you're just,
but other than that, nothing.
all right, with corrections. We have a motion to accept the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes. Can I get a motion for the city of Gerhart work session on Tuesday, October 15th, 2024?
I move to approve the minutes from the work session of the city council from Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. I'll second.
All right, we've got a second. Is there any discussion corrections? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. All right, a motion for the city of Gerhart work session of the city council for Tuesday, October 29th, 2024.
I move we approve the work session of the city council for Tuesday, October 29th, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Does anyone have any corrections? And if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. Planning commission meeting minutes. Everyone's got a copy in their packet. Any questions for Chad?
Do we not have October's planning commission minutes? I was confused because this is for August.
I think that might just be a misprint. Yeah.
No,
Not
it's,
sure.
Chad, it's not a misprint. They have had multiple meetings canceled, and so they're behind in approving. And we don't get them until the meeting after they approved anyway, so that's where they're at on the timeline.
So they haven't approved their minutes, because they were in the last meeting.
Huh? I thought, didn't you guys have an October meeting? You want me to speak?
Yeah.
But they won't approve the October meeting minutes until the November meeting.
Oh.
They've changed the approval process.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, mayor's report, I'm totally at a loss to give you anything to report on, except for I'm gonna miss you, Rita. I really am.
Cute.
And that's all I'm gonna do. Let's go to Rita for a report.
Well, as Jay, who's in our audience, will attest, I was not at the last housing authority meeting, and I don't want to prolong this meeting, so I have nothing to report.
I got your drift.
You got
We'll make it
it.
as fast as we can.
Thank you.
All right, Preston.
I think the council was included in the last resilience in the building meeting with the last week. So you guys know as much as.
Okay, Sure,
I have nothing to report.
Dana.
So yeah, it was an interesting month for me because I traveled to Florida where I saw firsthand the aftermath of, Milton and Helene, and, my brother-in-law's house had a tree fall on it, and my niece had a tree fall down on her property. I attended the LOC annual conference along with the mayor. Some interesting things from there, something that I will bring up in my councilor concerns later. State reports has a $6.5 billion water infrastructure deficit. There's a water service survey coming out, where we can report to the water caucus by December 15th what we need within our city, in order to get on the lists and make some masks. And I'm gonna, as I said, bring it up at the end of the meeting that we, address that at our next meeting, make sure that we have something to go by December 15th. Also in the League of Oregon Cities annual conference, they went through some FEMA buyout training, which was pretty consistent with what we heard here, and that is that everybody is still shaking their heads and trying to figure it out. A lot of talk about lodging tax changes, potential lodging tax changes that I'm sure we'll talk about in the near future. Attended the PSB kickoff meeting with the architect and the engineers, reviewed the goal reported by Rita and Sharon that we're gonna look at later. Identified a path forward, gathering information with staff. The architects and engineers were working with staff at the time that I left, as far as getting their expert opinions about what's not working in the current environment. And talking about moving forward, that we're ready to go forward with the 4 interactive public meetings that we've talked about in past scheduling. Our role will be minimal, and the way we see it, our role will be minimal if the public will be driving most of the decisions with the council participating in the roles that we're required to fill as far as voting. Met with citizens concerned about the tree ordinance, did additional research on septic issues. Also was invited, it was kind of fun, I went to Seaside High School, I was invited to attend Miss York's class and speak to them about civics and about my role as a city councilor, my former roles in law enforcement. And that's it.
Thank you. All right. The police report.
All right, let's keep moving because I just kind of got thrown into this. As for stats, we don't have any stats as of yet doing any close activity. All the other officers have been busy. Yeah, we're at least the chief and the sergeant. But on my end, it's been good. I've had an influx of calls as well. I've had a multitude more arrests this last month than I've had in my entire career here so far. We've focused heavily on traffic lately and getting the far and few calls that we get around. Other than that, just other calls for service and that's all I have. Anything else? Any questions for me?
Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It wasn't that bad, was it?
All right.
We're not gonna miss supervise, we all want.
We hardly ever like.
This is what happens when you're the only one that's left.
Yeah.
All right, chief.
Thank you, sir. So for stats data for last month for October, we had 58 total calls for service, 25 was in city limits and 22 is in the district. We sent out aid 10 times, 6 was to Seaside, a building fire, wildland fire. Then 4 times we needed extra manpower, just whether it was a big MVA, motor vehicle accident, or a couple medical calls at the same time. Went to Warrenton twice, once for a building fire and once they needed extra manpower. And then Hamlin and LC, we went to a building fire each for those agencies, and then we asked for aid twice. We had the 2 vehicle motor vehicle accident almost right in front of our substation that had heavy extrication on both vehicles. We had a life-flight patient. So we needed assistance. We could work on one car, it's just like we work on the other. And then I think it was last week, a week and a half ago, that communication line came down the highway. So we called CSAD to come and help because we couldn't get to the other side and control traffic from that side, so they came and assist with that side. And unless there's any questions, that's what I got.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Chief.
You guys are great.
You too.
Have fun.
Oh, yeah, we're on that. Oh, Master of Money, please.
Let's see, in October, the city always anxiously watches as our current property tax starts to come in and our quarterly transit room tax is collected. The city's largest revenue source is our property tax, and it's continued to experience higher than standard growth rates. So generally, the increase in the city's assessed value is limited to the 3% because of Measure 50. However, due to changes in property values, because of things like new construction, home improvements, as well as the fact that Earhart is currently in the Clatsop County reappraisal cycle that they do throughout the county, the city saw an increase of 3.84% in our assessed value. So that's always good to see. Property taxes collected for the general fund, the debt service fund, and the road district fund. The second largest revenue source is our transient room tax, and it's continued to be really stable. But it does have limited growth. I think comparing just straight up from October 31st from last year to this year, it was like $732 difference. Lower, but it could be that somebody's delinquent or there are other fees in there. So again, strong, stable, but no growth. These revenue sources are very important and are essential to cover operating costs. Noteworthy expenditures include the retainer fee for the city attorney, which represents payments for July through October, and our in accounts 10-1041. Legal services in 10-1741. There has been no changes to the retainer amount, but the new fiscal year acknowledgement wasn't signed until October, so we just had a delayed payment to make up the difference. The city has received their finalized audit, which created a final payment in the audit account. The auditors are being scheduled to provide the council with a brief overview, so either in December or January, they'll come and give a brief summary of their findings. There was a payment in 10-1348 for an annual volunteer firefighter accident policy that the city covers on our volunteer firefighters. There was a payment in 10-1882 Grant Parks for the resurfacing and striping of the existing courts at the water treatment facility, which the city will receive reimbursement through the Oregon Park and Recreational District LGGP Small Rehabilitation Grant that we were approved for last year. That work was finally done. We haven't received those funds yet because it's a reimbursement program, so we pay them out, we submit everything, and then we get the money back. There was a payment in Fund 71 for a partial payment towards the hydrochloric generation system that was approved by the city council in April. This purchase may be moved to our ARPA SLFRP grant funds that have to be spent by December because it's related to water infrastructure. Payment in Fund 75 for the purchase of a generator that was located up at the water reservoir, which the city will receive reimbursement through a hazardous mitigation grant that we received. And there was also a payment in Fund 78 for the purchase of the new public works vehicle that the council approved in July. The city was notified in September that Standard & Poor's, S&P, has changed their methodology for rating US governments, specifically from their FAQs. So this is a quote. For counties and municipalities, expected changes are primarily due to changes in factors weighting with less emphasis on economic factors and more emphasis on debt and liability than in the former criteria. So that particular piece is the piece that could affect the city of Earhart. They flagged many municipalities, school districts, and special districts for a re-review and Administrator Sweet and I were requested to participate in an updated S&P rating review, and we'll keep you updated on our progress. Because we were interviewed by them, and they'll look at our audits and our debt ratios and compare them to the new methodology. So please note that while our city is operating financially sound, S&P's new criteria may impact our rating despite our consistent, stable performance. So nothing that we have done differently. It could go up and it could go down, but there is nothing that we have done differently that would impact that other than simply a change in an equation. So that's coming. And I'd also like to just give a special thank you to all the voters that supported the Gerhart Rural Fire Protection District 5-year operating levy for fire and emergency services, because those funds from their levy provide a critical partnership that directly enhances our fire department while providing essential services for those residents. So very thankful that that was overwhelmingly supported.
Thank you, Justin.
Just tonight, a quick question.
Sure.
This email I received from Acuity,
Yes,
I don't know who else received it, but that it's asking me some questions.
So
it's something I have to respond
it
to by
is
December 15th.
correct.
Get one?
everybody gets one. They
Okay.
have to, you didn't get one?
I haven't seen one in mine.
Maybe check your junk. I'll talk to them. They have, I think they send it to everybody. They have to receive so many back from counselors independently. You know, they want your input, just on some generic questions. There's no right or wrong answer. They would just like to get a feel for what you think and your opinion of specific questions.
I can forward the email I received to you and you can disseminate it.
Okay.
Everybody, I believe I have it in my phone that the deadline was December 15th.
Okay,
I didn't want to just randomly start answering questions
Sure.
until I clarified.
Yep, yes, it's legit. Somebody else asked to, and
I'm having trouble signing into it.
yeah, they have a special secure.
I know, but how do you get into it?
I think you can print it out and write it in and then we can.
You can do that
fax
too,
it over
scan.
Or scan it.
Correct. You could do that. But yes,
Okay,
they want your
Mr.
input. If they don't get so many, you know, proportionately,
I'm
like.
giggling because I was doing the same thing this morning.
Alright, any other questions? Then we'll go to Peter.
Okay, I've been working with Division Chief Andy on fee recovery for our fires so that when we're responding out of our area, we'll be able to recover particularly car accidents and things of that nature. During our discussion of what kind of calls are most likely and just kind of talking through the various issues, one thing that I learned is from her is that if a paramedic or other person is with the patient when the ambulance comes, if they have a higher level of accreditation than the people in the ambulance, then they're required to stay with the patient through the transport to the hospital. So for someone like herself that is highly trained, she has to stay with essentially the ambulance company's getting a free paramedic. And the reason I use that phrase is because apparently that's the phrase that the ambulance company owner uses, which is like, well, we have a bunch of free paramedics in the county. So obviously if she's doing that work, then that's other work she's not able to do here in the community. So I think we're going to talk about, is there a way we can recover that time as well? Kind of finalized for the period. I mean, it's probably going to come to you next month for your review. And we're going to take one more kind of comprehensive look at it and try and troubleshoot through it. But it's fairly ready to go. I think right now I feel pretty good about what kind of shape we're in. And it was really helpful for me to learn about some of these fire issues and research what other jurisdictions are doing. And as we look at the future, like the type of calls that our department is doing, it may be at some point in the future that we perhaps want to get our own ambulance to be able to transport people, and that would be that wouldn't be an easy process, but there does seem to be kind of some lag times now, and it seems like people would benefit if our fire were able to provide that sort of skilled service and transport. So Andy and I have talked a little bit about some of the funding mechanisms that we might be able to use, maybe something like akin to like a life flight where people pay an X amount a year, and then if they need the service, then it's not, they don't have to pay for it. She has some different ideas. So we might be bringing those back as a concept too. And I don't think that's something that necessarily is going to happen in the near term, but it kind of as we look out into the future and just the volume of calls and what they're requiring, as well as the level of skill on our fire staff, which is, we've got some people that are really licensed, that are able to provide those services. So that might be something down the road that we take a look at. Continuing to work with Garrett through the FEMA issues, and we'll get those hopefully taken care of, and then no litigation at the moment, knock on wood. But I am going to be in municipal court in February for hearings, so I get to be a prosecutor again, which seems like happening once every couple of years. So that is what I've got, unless you guys have questions.
I talked to Andy also about having an ambulance here, and she indicated that medics might be leaving Clatsop County. Do you know anything about that?
So I know that Oregon-wide, there have been really, my cities have, my non-metro, Portland metro area cities have all been having issues with ambulance service. To the point where Estacada is now regularly life flighting people because it just takes so long to get an ambulance. And I think a lot of the companies are having staffing issues. I believe Medics is under common ownership with Metro West. Metro West has had to are filling in Washington County. They had that contract, and then Washington County went with AMR, and then AMR, their service times were reaching a point where, it's possible that they just aren't able to staff. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. And so they may be interested in reducing their territory.
I think this has to do with the state legislature. I think that they changed the rules for ambulances. The fact that they have to have 2 paramedics on board instead of 1 paramedic and 1 EMS officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the state should be held to the fire on the fact that we don't have, we're losing our ambulance service. And where in the hell is Fulton Valley Fire and Rescue? I mean, those guys, they're bigger than Portland Fire Bureau.
Well, so the way that ambulances work is that if you were a fire department that had an ambulance, then you were grandfathered in and could still provide the services. And if you weren't, then you're under the county's franchise for ambulance. So TVF and they're in Washington County, Clackamas and Yamhill, but a lot of they don't necessarily have ambulances, or they have to wait for Metro West so I know it's been an issue for them in the past.
Well, don't you think it's part of the legislature's problem?
So I actually met with the governor's Oregon Solutions team about a month and a half ago to talk about some of these issues. And one of the things that they're very aware of is the need for ambulance service in rural communities. And I think there's some interest in revisiting this. I don't know about the staffing rule, but the ability of fire departments to have an ambulance and provide transport is something that they're looking at. They did not say with certainty that there would be legislation that was happening, but again, this was like 6-8 weeks ago, so it was well before the session, but it kind of sounded like people were very aware of the issue and taking a look at it, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's legislation.
I mean, for the cities to do this, it's a huge liability.
Yeah, I mean, we would probably, it's possible homeowners could pay a annual fee per year and then, you know, they could have that service. If we had an ambulance, but under the current laws, we can't yet have one. But I agree with you that, you know, it's. If your city's 15 miles from Metro's boundary and you're regularly having to helicopter people in and out because you can't get an ambulance, that's a major issue. That's a major health and safety issue.
Well, I mean, I think the last current deal, what, 50%?
Of our calls?
Yeah, EMS.
Yeah, I think 44 to 50%.
Yeah, that's what Andy and I were discussing, is it's so many of these are health related calls.
Yeah, and as the population gets older here in Gerhard, you know, I mean, it's gonna be more of a need.
Right, and it's like, if we have the skilled people and we had an ambulance and we didn't have to wait 20 minutes for one, I mean, it's a matter of, it could be a matter of life and death depending on. And you know, again, when our firefighters are on one of these and they're waiting for an ambulance, it means they're not available for other calls. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons why this fee that we're looking at, I think, is critically important. And then I think there'll be community conversations about, well, particularly if the county loses ambulance service, but we've got to figure some of this stuff out.
All right,
Thank you.
Chad.
Mr. Mayor and Council, just a couple things. Everybody's covered many of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is great. Oregon Water Resources Department application is still in the queue. We have had, and by we, Chris Hyatt, our hydrogeologist, has been working with and having conversations with Water Resources Division about additional water rights in regards to our application. Oregon Water or Oregon WRD did let us know that they're a little behind and that this application is in a 6 to 9 month response queue. We submitted it about a month ago now, so we'll see how that goes. Chris Hyatt with Hyatt Geosciences that I mentioned before has had some good conversations with some newer folks that are in that organization, helping them to understand our situation. So I don't have anything more of that to report at the moment, but it's continuing on. Conversations are happening. We did have our Solomon and Lane generator installed with the power switch for that. So this is part of a grant that we received from FEMA. And we have received the generator, installed the transfer switch, and it is ready to go. The only thing that we're waiting to purchase is a shed to protect the generator from the elements. And we're doing that after we get approval from the grant, FEMA grant for that purchase. And then that project will be complete. As you see outside, City Hall and the fire station are lit green in honor of veterans for Veterans Day. So from November 4th to 11th, the City Hall and the fire station will remain that color. Election Day, as you know, as it was yesterday. Nothing really to report other than it doesn't look like Until Monday, December 2nd, will the results be certified and published by 5 p.m. After that, there is another appeals process, potentially, for races that were very close, but we'll look to see that the county submit or certifies around December 2nd. Save the date, public safety building community meeting, which we are working on with FFA, our architect, and with the Klosh group, the building group. The first meeting number 1, is Tuesday, December 3rd, 6 to 7:30 at the fire hall. We put some flyers on the chairs so people have that available to them. And we're gonna be posting those about and working to try to get the word out for that. I'll be working with FFA and Klosh group on that meeting and the agenda, and we'll communicate that agenda as soon as I receive it to the city council. Along those same lines, we met with the geotechnical folks today. We scoped out some areas where they're going to do their geotesting. And what they're gonna do is drill about 100-foot deep hole and then take samples every 5 feet. Analyze those samples, and what that will help with is the architects to look at designing the foundation of the building, especially the foundation, with that information. As you know, we are, a fire department is critical infrastructure. And with that, there are building codes that make critical infrastructure a little bit more difficult than a normal construction project. So there's a lot of expense in a foundation, and this will give us the information to do the best job we can with the location we have. With that, I've got a couple other things on the agenda today that we'll work through, but any questions from me?
What's the turnaround time on the geotech analysis?
I'm not sure exactly, but I didn't think it was going to, because we're only doing 1 test hole. We possibly might do 2 if they have time. That there's not a lot of data for them to really go through, so it should be fairly quick. It wasn't holding up our timeline at all. But I'm imagining it's gonna take maybe 3 weeks to get some of that information.
And then the generator, that's up the water tower, right?
Yes.
And what's that gonna be potentially used for?
That generator, what we chose was a diesel power generator, and it's about 80 kW. And what it is particularly used for is up at the reservoir side, we have a telemetry system that communicates how much water is in our reservoir to our water treatment facility. And the software and Mark McFadden are always monitoring those levels. This will help keep that energized in an extended power outage so that we understand better what's going on within our water system. It'll also energize the ham radio shack that's up there. And for emergencies, we have a amateur ham radio installation up there with an antenna, so that it will enable that to be a repeater and to continue in operation in a power outage or other emergency. The other thing that it'll do is we actually have an installation from the United States Geological Survey up there. It's called Shake Alert, and it is an advanced warning earthquake system that is installed up at our water treatment facility up on the hill, and it will also power that. And if and when we need it elsewhere, we decided to purchase one that ran on diesel fuel because we have that in quantity, and it's easier to find in the event of a situation where fuel is difficult to get, such as the 2007 storm. We can take this, it's on wheels, so we can trailer it to wherever we need around town and use it in other places. Which right now, one of the benefits of having that is that our main generator here at the City Hall is out. I'm gonna talk to you a little bit more about that tonight. So that if we did have something coming up, we could go grab that generator and bring it down and plug it into our City Hall and fire station.
And then last question, the Elk Cooperative, can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, so the Elk Cooperative is kind of spinning up again. What we're trying to do is take a look at where the cities are at in their declaration of cooperation and the items that we need to take care of. They want to begin talking about some of the land use issues again. So Garrett and I met to talk about, what we have done, what we haven't gotten to yet in the cooperation documents. And then we're going to begin getting in the meetings through press to have countywide discussions soon. So it was just a preliminary meeting to find out kind of what it is that we have and what we need to do.
Do the cities, can they say, no, we don't want to be in the cooperative, or?
I'm sure they can. We did sign under Mayor Polina, or under Mayor Polina Cochran, a declaration saying that, we would do the things, we would participate, we would assist, and we would do some things to help lessen the impact. And we've done most of them. Part of them are, some of them are difficult things that are left over, such as some land use decisions that we need to have a conversation about, potential fencing changes, and maybe more educational factors, also what we can do to better educate the public on the elk in our area and how the interaction is. But other than that, we've got quite a few of the things on our agenda and our declaration of cooperation done already. There's no other discussions about where that was going. It was just more of a checkup to see what communities were.
Thank you.
I got a question on these dune access applications. Are they private?
So far, yes. One was in front of the condominiums, 10th Street, where they could mow up to the dune vegetation line. One was a private person, just lives beyond just 13th Street in the Highlands area, where they had to get permission from the city to mow up to the dune vegetation line, and then they also had permission from the state of Oregon to mow beyond that as well. And so they accomplished that. And then I've got another one that was just coming in for in front of one of the other condo units as well to do some mowing and.
And that's dune access,
Yeah,
it's not dune mowing,
correct.
let's see.
So we give them access as long as what they were doing is along with our vegetation ordinance. So if they wanted to go out there and they were able to mow the dunes to keep noxious weeds down, or for fire reasons, those applications are justified under the ordinance. And we're allowed to let them access the dunes, but they can't access the dunes until the city gives them permission. We give them parameters, sometimes before, after, and during pictures, walkthroughs before and after. That includes conversations about the vehicles being clean without any noxious weeds attached to them that are going to be out there, where people can access the dunes and where they can't access the dunes to get out there, those sorts of things. I'll try to accomplish all that, along with maps that we have of the mowing area, so that we're all on the same page. And sometimes, well, most times, also having firefighting equipment available to those folks that are doing the work. And then so that they notify us so that we know what's happening when.
Okay,
So if they're mowing noxious weeds to cut down on the seed dispersal, or?
Sometimes Scotch broom, sometimes blackberry, sometimes those other things that are mowing out there. A lot of the condominiums and that believe that the continued mowing is keeping a lot of those noxious weeds down as well. And so that was part of the vegetation ordinance to allow those activities.
Usually when you cut stuff, it just comes back even stronger.
Normally that is true, but here what we have is in the two different types of beech dune grasses that we have, and this is according to Kathleen Sace, who is the ecologist that helped the city through that process. If you mow the beech dune grasses down and also getting rid of the noxious weeds, what generally happens is that the grasses grow back faster and choke out those weeds. And if the grasses are healthy and the weeds have not been left to proliferate, then the grasses will come up stronger and then choke those weeds out. And so there's less maintenance. You can look at the area in front of the condominiums and see what their grass is. It's kind of a monoculture with just the grasses that they have with a little bit of noxious weeds versus what we have on the south side of the city, where we have not been that active in mowing, and where we're dealing with a lot more blackberries, Scotch broom especially, and that sort of thing. So there was in the ordinance, that was one of the reasons, to allow for that mowing. We do keep them away from the bird nesting season. And the state of Oregon is even pushing them out even longer, into just the winter times to do mowing. As well, so we work collaboratively with the owner to make sure that we are not giving any, we have no jurisdiction out past the new vegetation line, and we're very clear with that. They have to get permitting through the state, we work with the state to help with it.
And the OPRD generally only will give them one permit per year, and they'll specify when it can be, and it's usually late October, November, because of their concerns about fire. That line that they can mow for the state was established in, I believe, 1967. It's at that point, that's where the ocean went to. And so there is a process they could use in order to challenge the location of that, through the statute that governs that. Thus far, they have not done that, but that is something that could happen in the future that would impact their ability to mow and our ability to regulate.
Right, I have a quick question for you, Chad. Under the code enforcement, without identifying who called, was it private citizens that called you to check on the 2 tree cutting scenarios?
One was a private citizen, and then one was an inquiry by Councillor Clough as well.
Okay, any other questions for Chad? All right, moving. We're going to the visitor section. Jay Blake from Clatsop County Planning Manager is here to talk to us about economic opportunities analysis plan.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm trying to get it so that I can share a screen here. And let's see if this is, I think that's going to work right there. Share.
Yep.
Let's see if it's,
Yeah,
it's kind of working. We're gonna work with this. You've all had an opportunity to see this. A few things just out of the chute. Thank you, City Administrator Sweet, for allowing me this opportunity to come in. He did mention it was Councilor Fackrell's last time, so he asked me to speak for an hour and a half, but I promised him that I wouldn't. So I'll just try and keep it as brief as I can. And one more thing on statistics, I'll give you one. I have not yet been caught speeding in Gerhart. One. Okay, there's your statistics though.
Want to see what car he gets in.
No, I don't, no. It's recipe red, so I understand, so. My name is Jay Blake and I'm the county's planning manager, and I've been with the county now just about a year. Prior to that, I worked briefly for the city of Warrenton, and even before that, I was a middle school teacher. So I have a lot of very varied experience. Prior to being a teacher, I was a planner back in Minnesota. I do appreciate the chance to get in front of you. I hope to do this more often. My job at the county is to manage some of the bigger projects. I don't necessarily get into the weeds, so to speak, that we were talking about mowing weeds. I don't get into the weeds. I don't get into all the permitting so much, but I'm managing some of the larger projects that the county's planning department and community development department are working on. I work for Gail Hendrickson, and we've got a great group of people there, and we're trying to do good work. And I'm here to talk just briefly about something called the Economic Opportunities Analysis, or EOA. And it is essentially a planning document for us to use at the county level to try to improve our economic situation. In the metropolitan area, and your city attorneys are probably very familiar with these types of things, they are often used to justify expansions or changes to urban growth boundaries. When counties do them, and only a few have, they don't always get a chance to do that discussion because the counties don't do the urban growth boundaries. That's a city thing. So what we're looking at is what it is the county can do to improve our economic situation. We have some things that are happening to us, not necessarily for us, but are happening to us. The FEMA buy-up, the Habitat Conservation Plan, changes in DEQ's requirements for food processing industries. There's been a lot of changes in the last few years that are seemingly impacting our economy. And so the county started last fall to look at what it is we should be doing to not be as reactive as we seem to be. These things we knew these things are coming, but yet we haven't necessarily gone anywhere with it. So this plan is our first attempt to try to move the economy, not change it wholesale, but to try to make it so that it is much more diverse. We started economic planning actually in 1980, and we said we should diversify our economy. In 1995, we did another economic development plan. Guess what we said? We should diversify our economy. We said it in 2004. We said it in 2019. So we're actually trying to set out a work program for the county to try and set the table for a new economy for the future. One of the things that we identified right away is the county doesn't create jobs. That's not the role of the county, nor would the county probably be very good at it. But it is our hope to set a table where jobs can be created. And to make it so that those things can occur and not be the impediment. So that's part of the rationale behind it. Some of the general findings that we started with were, one, job training is critical. We cannot train for the jobs of the 1950s. We need to be training for the jobs of the 2050s. And so we are now working with Clatsop Community College and the Mertz Group and Job Corps and Northwest Oregon Works to try to help us figure out what that next set of jobs are, and then to modify and update our training programs so that we are looking to the future, not to the past. The other thing that we identified immediately is that housing is a huge impetus for economic development. I can't tell you how many times at the Housing Task Force we've talked about this, and elsewhere where people have said, I can't get anybody to come here because there's no affordable, safe housing for these people. And that's not at just one level, that's at multiple levels. I mean, it's hard to get people to move here for a $20 an hour job because there's no housing. It's hard for the hospitals and Providence and Astoria to bring in doctors because they have expectations that they can't meet here. There's not the right type of housing or the right mix or the right levels of housing. So that was something that we identified right away as well. We worked with the state of Oregon, and the state did a projection in 2022 saying, here are the areas that we think are going to grow the most in Northwest Oregon. And they identified construction, and I'm actually very happy about that we can hopefully expand our construction industry, healthcare, and that's multiple levels of healthcare. That's everything from doctors and surgeons to bedpan changers and people taking care of people in our living facilities, our long-term care facilities, so forth. So healthcare is a very broad area, but they identify that as one of our significant growth areas. Another one is food processing, and food processing has a plus and minus side. Anywhere you make food, it creates a lot of waste, and it's not necessarily waste that's easy for cities to deal with. So breweries, whether they're in Seaside, Astoria, Warrenton, or wherever, create a lot of waste that is difficult for the typical wastewater treatment facility to handle. Add on to that the fact that we process a lot of fish and fish products. Fish byproducts are not the friend of a wastewater treatment facility either. So there's some new things that are happening with the State Department of Environmental Quality that we're trying to get ahead of rather than be reactive on. So let's see. I wonder if I can make this work here.
Stuff.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Okay, so we have what we call the big three. The big three are fisheries, forestry, and fun, or recreation and tourism. I love alliteration. And we have said since 1980, we should be diversifying. That doesn't mean you walk away from some of the things that you are good at. It's trying to figure out how to do them in the future. and how to mold them and modify them so they meet our future needs. And that can be anything from how do we better manage the movement of commodities on the river to how do we protect the sand resources along this coast that bring in the quality tourism that we hope to have. Tourism is one of those words that is a four-letter word for some people. And it is really a challenge because it is the largest employer in our county. In terms of the number of people, is that tourism sector. And it's not necessarily the most in terms of the amount of money that is made in that sector, but the most people work in that sector. So we can't walk away from it, but how can we make it better? How can we make it so that we're not having the negative impacts, whether it be negative impacts on environmental issues or negative impacts on the traffic jams at Ensign Lane in Warrenton, which drive me nuts. So there's pluses and minuses to those areas. One of the other things that we really want to try to also focus on is to expand the healthcare hub that we have here. It's rare that a county our size has two health systems. We have the Providence Health System in Seaside and the Union Health Group and the connections that they have over there to Portland. We have CMH, we have the $300 million expansion that they just broke ground on and their connection with OHSU. That's unusual. And there's spin-off businesses that we want to try to promote and expand, whether it is someone who is providing wheelchairs or other types of medical services that are the spin-off businesses for those areas. That's really going to be one of our future focuses. Someone talked about us getting older. We are getting older. Clatsop County is older than the state average. And the people who are migrating here, guess what, are older. And they're coming here at retirement age, so they're coming here and not necessarily wanting to be in the workforce. So our future workforce is really going to be impacted by that fact. And so we've got to, again, talk about how do we train these people, how do we build housing for these people, and how do we keep them here? One other thing that came up in our process was the shortage of childcare facilities. That has been identified by a number of businesses as the second critical issue behind housing, is having places for their employees who, many of them have to both work. Having safe and reliable childcare facilities is really an important thing. All right, I'm gonna quickly go through this because I want to be done and get you guys on to your last thing. Number 1 and 2 issues identified in our community survey: housing availability and housing affordability. And so it speaks to that issue. This one is, again, I apologize, it's difficult to see, but they identified the types of businesses that the public wants us to go after. Number 1 was healthcare. Number 2 was construction trades. Number 3 was tech-based businesses. Okay. That relates a little bit to our major goal areas. We're trying to make it line up there. I'm not going to talk about FEMA buyout. You guys are very much aware of it, but it's having an impact across the county. It has significant impacts in rural Clatsop County and in Warrenton, more so than some of the other cities. But a lot of our historically important industrial and employment lands have been near the water. And guess what? They're in the floodplain. And so there's going to be some significant changes to how we can or cannot develop those lands. I'm not here to judge good or bad, but I'm just saying that it's going to change us. A couple last statistics again, and I'll be quick here, but MIT did a study of living wage jobs. What is the living wage in every county in the United States? And they looked at the cost of housing, they looked at the cost of healthcare, gas, insurance. There's a whole laundry list of things. And what they determined was, for a family with 1 adult working, and they have 1 kid, a living wage in Clatsop County is $37 an hour. In order to be able to afford, not fancy, but basic living in our county. Now, that's less than Portland, but it's more than Wallowa. So, I mean, it's relative. The other one is that if you had two adults working and you have two kids, both adults need to make about $27 an hour. And so we aren't necessarily, that was a shock to a lot of people to see those numbers. One of the last things that I'll share, and then I'm gonna move quickly, is these are the jobs that the state is predicting that are going to grow. And the ones that are gonna grow the most are not living wage jobs. So living wage jobs are gonna happen. We need to find, I mean, non-living wage jobs are going to happen, they're going to grow. We have to work on how do we get the higher paying jobs into our area. All right. Foundational concepts I already talked about. We have a series of goal statements, and I'll leave those here. It's motherhood and apple pie. It's really hard to be against these things. And so that's why I don't spend a lot of time on them. But they are the direction we're trying to head. This is what we would like to see. We have economic aspirations, we have housing concerns, we need to create a safe and healthy community and a resilient community because the world is changing. We need to be flexible and able to change as well. The last thing that I'll mention, then I'll stop and answer any questions, is these are the 4 areas we're talking about as our investment areas at the county level. And my whole goal here is to get some reaction from you, not necessarily tonight. Take a look at the document when you have time, and please share with me your thoughts on these directions. The blue economy is everything related to water. That is everything from tourism to boat building to the Army Corps of Engineers, the US Coast Guard, anything that has to do with either what I call the river waterfront or the fund waterfront. Anything having to do with that is called the blue economy. The state of Oregon is making an investment in these areas, and that's why we want to capitalize on it. Healthcare and wellness, that talked about the healthcare hub. Construction and resources sector, that's where we're trying to get construction people to our area. And I live in South County, and I see 6 trucks with ladders on 101 scattered at different locations every week. I'm pretty sure that these are construction people who don't have a place to live. They're here to work on a project, which we want them to, but they're living in a pickup down by the junction. And I see them every morning, and it's really hard that they don't have a place to go. And so that's one of our major sectors. Food production, the state of Oregon has identified that as one of its future investment areas. So I think we have, between breweries, distilleries, and fish, you can have beer and fish here in our county. But I think that that's something that we can focus on because I know the state is going to be putting money towards that. Now, again, I apologize for taking so much time, but my goal here is to get in front of you and ask you to take some time, look at the document, and give me some feedback. We are going to go to public hearing probably in January. So we've got about 60 days before we have an actual hearing per se. We did a couple of open houses. We did one in Seaside. We did one in Astoria this past week. We had about 40 people show up and help us to prioritize the different action steps. And so with that, I'm here to answer any questions. Chad has been participating in a number of the meetings. Garrett has been at some of the meetings. I'm going to be going out to Seaside and Canada Beach and Warrenton and Astoria to essentially, again, solicit your thoughts so that we can make this more of a bigger plan, the group hug, if you will. So, any questions with me? Yes, sir.
Okay, so I brought this up at the Placer County meeting with Javity, okay?
Yeah.
How do the cities go about turning the tourist money reversed so that the municipalities get 80%? We don't need any more tourists on this coast,
I'm counselor. I love how you phrase that.
okay? We, all the way from Clascanine,
Mm-hmm.
clear down, to Brookings.
Yep.
People are gonna come here.
we don't need to promote it.
No.
Yeah.
But the money that it generates, how do the municipalities get the 8% and the tourist industry get the 8%?
So, that's one of the action statements, is to look at that, creating flexibility for what, the term I use is recreational counties. And that's essentially Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, and down the coast, and also Bend. We've been lobbying at the county level to get flexibility on the transit room tax and other taxes. Those are the only direct resources we get, you guys as well, from the tourists, is that tax. And it's prescribed, and there's a huge lobby that is arguing against it.
That's what Cyrus said.
Yeah, and so this whole thing is to try to create some momentum to create, it's not just Clatsop County's problem. It's Clatsop County's, it's all the cities along the coast. It's Tillamook County, it's Lincoln County. It's the whole idea is to make this an issue. And part of it, our county manager has talked about this as a response to the changes that the HCP is going to bring to county resources, financial resources. And his thought, Mr. Boone's thought is that if we can have flexibility on the room tax and other resources, we can then cover our resources better than, so what you're saying is in line with what our action steps are saying too. So I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah. I knew I could find something, you know. All right. My job is done in presenting, but I'm available if you want to email me, call me, talk to me about any of the concerns you have. The comments we've received were amazing, and they're now going to be added into our process in making the action steps more relatable and hopefully better, and that they represent the public's concerns better. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Are there any other questions for Jay?
I don't see contact information. How would you?
My mistake. It should be on the one-page handout. Did that one get in there too? The executive summary? Should be on the back,
On the bottom.
on the bottom, yeah. And I respond best to emails, that I'm on top of my emails better than just about anything. So if there is something that you see you'd like added, you think I'm crazy, please let me know. I mean, because this is not Jay's plan. That even though I live in the county, this is not my plan. This is supposed to represent the greater good. So, yeah.
Has anybody talked to Uncle Martin up there at Airport Hill?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got all the property for housing.
He does. And one of the things, and your city attorney's aware of this, that we talked about last year was a UGB swap. We talked about some UGB expansions. And so I've talked to the family a number of times, and they're not opposed because they see the value of it as well. Yeah, you know exactly. And so I think that that's going to be something that when I get to the point where I'm talking UGBs with each of the cities, I'm hopefully going to be able to help prod the city and Martin and the whole family to get together.
Because, I mean, that's the affordable housing of the future.
It is. We identified it at the staff level, and it just hasn't gotten to that next level. So you're again, I really like you, and I don't even know. All right.
Thank you, Jay.
So we got our buildable lands inventory, and Garrett and Chad and I ground truthed it.
Yeah.
And it was a stunning amount of land that got pulled out of it, even more so than the last time, because we actually walked some of it. And I would just encourage the other cities to do the same thing, because it looks like they're just going off of raw acres. And it's probably, if they're anything like us, they're probably gonna end up with about 30% of what they think they have when they've actually looked at it.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. The county is looking at it because we've got a lot of areas. They've identified some areas that we have zoned RA5, which is a 5 acre minimum. And they're like, oh, look at all that developable land. Well, the state doesn't allow us to just willy-nilly change the zoning. And if someone owns 5 acres, it's very rare that they don't want their 5 acres. And so we've started to identify, you know, that RA5 is not redevelopment land. That's got a small farm on it, or it's got a house, and it's not going to get redeveloped. So we're having that same issue on the county level. I know Warrenton has done the ground truthing, and I think Seaside's in the middle of it with their comp plan. So yeah, I completely agree with you, and I like you too.
That's good.
All right. All right, well, thank you. Yeah, yeah, so, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, you bet.
All right. We have 2 people on the list who want to speak, and as soon as we get through that, I'm gonna switch things up and give Mark McFadden a chance to talk about the reallocation of the ARPA funds for water infrastructure. That way he can go home after working a full day. So right now, public communication, written and oral. Anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city reporter at info@cityofgerhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. All right. After these 2 people talk, we'll go over the written correspondence that's in our packet, and then we'll move to Mark McFadden. Right now, we got Deanna Mansell, number 1.
I get the card, don't I? Speaking first. Private joke. Deanna Mansell, 2945 Highway 101 North. This is kind of an ongoing issue. The issue of the Turners combining their tax lots 200 and 1604, which is the abandoned railroad right of way, into a single tax lot, which is tax lot 200, has bothered me for a couple of years. I did not believe that it was in compliance with the Gerhart zoning ordinance or state law. Lucas Marshall, Clatsop County Health Department, informed me in an email, November 15, 2022, that the act of combining 2 tax lots invalidated the DEQ easement covenant and servitude agreement with the Turner septic system. The agreement does not let a property owner do anything detrimental to their septic system, including planting trees on top of the system. And we could not get the county to do anything. They just, blew me off. Upon further investigation, the Gerhart zoning ordinance under the definition section states lot measurement or parcel lawfully created shall remain a discrete lot or parcel unless the parcel lines are vacated or the lot is further divided as provided by law, which is ORS 92.017. And from the Oregon City zoning book, further explanation, lot line adjustment procedure is used to relocate a single existing common property line between 2 abutting lots or lots of record. No additional lots or building sites may be created. Lot line abandonment eliminates a single existing common property line between 2 property lines or two abutting lots or lots of records combining them into a single lot. Procedure that's required for this is you hire a land surveyor and you write up a new legal description. It is considered to be a type 1 land use decision by the Gerhart Planning Commission. Did any of this happen several years ago with the city of Gerhart? Chad, do you know?
I don't.
Okay, well, so because it's a land use issue, rightly, they should have gone to the city planning department to review it, because I've seen cases in Luba, you know, where they've actually reviewed the issue of combining tax lots. So to continue, next month, I'm going to be submitting some additional documents to you guys. In 1983 Circuit Court ruling, separating the railroad right-of-way from the adjacent tax lots and having its own legal descriptions, and a 1987 Tom Wagner survey done for me, which clearly showed the railroad right-of-way as being a different parcel of land. Clatsop County web maps still show the abandoned railroad. The Turner's property still has 2 parcels of land based on the public record. So the question I have to ask is, who is going to take enforcement action? Is it going to be the city of Gerhart, Clatsop County Health Department, or the DEQ? I'm concerned about this because when I had Complete Septic come to my house a week and a half ago, the tree roots are getting really close to my sewer line. And the way our system is, if the tree roots break in to the joints, it's gonna clog the pipe. The gray water's gonna back up into my dosing tank, and my system is down. I have to move out of the house. And I don't think that that's fair for my family to have to deal with this when I do believe that it's an enforcement issue, but who's gonna take responsibility for taking that willow tree out? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear you're still dealing with that.
I've written them a letter and they're just ignoring me with this issue.
Okay.
So
Have you written DEQ, Clatsop County Health?
I haven't recently, I was gonna send the Clatsop County Health Department the new information that I had. Personally, I don't think the health department is operating that effectively. I was almost tempted to write a letter to the Board of County Commissioners to force some action, because I don't know what's wrong with the health department. You know, I mean, the septic providers, they're overworked in dealing with these systems, but I'm very disappointed that I'm getting the runaround about this issue.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll look forward to your information next month.
I will submit this into the next council meeting.
Okay.
And maybe you guys can review it and see if legally you might feel comfortable about somehow interceding with the health department, or whatever it takes to get the issue taken care of.
We can look at it.
Okay,
I can tell you that much.
okay, thank you.
All right, next on the list is Shannon Smith, number 2.
Go on, run it at the end. Yeah. I always like fun, you know, keep it entertaining. You're gonna get sick of me talking about this, but hey. In a good way, I hope. Am I gonna do it right here?
And I think that's got a clamp at the top.
If I can successfully clamp. Pull it up? No. Sure. Yeah. Open, open it up.
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh, that's, oh, that's, haha. You're a good education even, you know? Hey, you've seen this before. Part of our fantastic
Yeah.
comprehensive plan.
Name and address.
Shannon Smith, 774 Pacific Way, just down the road. 97138. I have thought with some graphics, as you can see. I wanted to talk again just about some new updates with this interest in the preservation, conservation, and protection long-term of Neocoxie Creek. And I know there's lots of things going on with it, but I thought I'd bring up kind of a few things that may make a difference in people thinking about this differently. Again, the comprehensive plan talks about particularly conservation and preservation protection for open spaces, scenic areas, historic resources, natural resources for the future generations. And so I got to thinking, we have, of course, our beach and this was sort of estuary and beach grass that are protected by, thank you goodness, Tom McCall back in the West 70s, where he was visionary and said, we need to do public beaches in Oregon, and we all benefit from that action. It's one of our treasures here that we get to enjoy every day. The estuary has, of course, all sorts of, recreation as well as the beach does. I have come to feel that we are standing in basically an incredible park. Think of our trees along the forest that are lining Neocoxie Creek. It's like our sequoias, our redwood forests. They are 300 plus years old. They are the ancient Sitka spruce. They're aquatic resources special concern trees, which means they grow in areas that are behind this dune. And they're protected again by that dune and part of the waterway down there because they've had decades to grow that huge without being blown over, of course, with the fierce windstorms. The dune protects them as well as the forest around them. They are really unique. Bob McEwen, 102 in a couple days, told me about Seaside having the same kind of forest along its banks prior to World War II. World War II, all those trees, many of them went to be lumber for the war effort. He said right down to the water. He said we needed them, of course, for shipbuilding, et cetera. So if you think about it from almost, I think, Newport to Warrenton, there are very few areas where in a city, in a town like ours, we have a creek that runs through it, a creek that's this wild and this diverse with this many old trees. And the thing I want to say, it's not about the trees. So of course we have here the estuary. Great. The wonderful beach, the beach. But then we have all the incredible scenic. I have these people here. We have all the scenic aspects of both the creek that people enjoy every day when they drive by. We have the way it looks and then, stormy days. We have the way that with herons coming. This is good today. Anyway, I'll hold them up. We have the blue heron that this guy came and sat in my tree, looked for fish. And then we also have, we'll tell you, they're huge. Otters. I'll pass this around to the crowd. These two otters plus two babies came and did all sorts of antics in the pool right down here by Pacific Way. They were kissing and doing all sorts of fun little activities. And what my point is that it's a whole ecosystem. It's not just about the trees and the tree ordinance and all that. What we're going to propose is a petition to talk to the citizens, put out to the citizens of Gerhardt,
about efforts to, again, gather the community together to support protection of the creek. And all the different grants and possible fundraising there is out there right now. There's things to do things for the culverts and better fish passage. Heather Dimke, who's actually our state lands person for our county, she did a specialty effort in Salem. The other thing we did is talk to Senator Wyden's office and Senator Murphy's office. They have resources too for communities like ours that would like to do more preservation. They're going to keep on the lookout for funding resources we could use for greater access to, again, maybe purchase acreage along the creek, have viewing platforms, do things that are really comprehensive for betterment for the community, all for future generations. So it's another way to think about this as our third treasure that we really should save for future generations. So I'll continue with some of that in a petition. I'll copy you all on it and hope you can support it.
Thank you,
The
Sharon.
citizens would really like it. Thanks.
All right, so everyone, we've got these letters that have been submitted. Anyone have any questions, need to talk about any of them?
Question about a letter from Victoria Fry. It seems like he's blaming us for killing the deer herd. That's what she said. She said you should be ashamed of killing the deer herd.
Well, you know, that's probably someone who's looked at social media and taken a story off of social media, because
Okay.
how can we be responsible?
I don't know, that was my question, is like, why is she blaming us?
Social media.
Oh.
All right. Now, we're gonna move right over into new business. And we're gonna go to Mark McFadden so he can get maybe home by 10 o'clock. What? I know that makes your day, doesn't it? All right, Mark.
Mark and I are gonna tag team on this one.
Oh, is it good cop, bad cop?
Yeah. Depends on how you look at it. Yeah, so Mark and I have been in a lot of discussions along with staff and working with our treasurer Justine. And in the past, we had had conversations about purchasing and installing a third skid unit for our water treatment facility. There's a lot of great reasons to install a third skid unit, even right now, without full water rights. Continuity of service, the wear and tear on our current system, being able to maintain the skid units by tearing one apart and putting it back together would all be made more possible by a third skid unit. It would give us a lot of resiliency and some redundancy for our community and assist in Mark in managing that system. Earlier this week, or actually the end of last week, I invited the city councilors to meet with city staff and to arrange something with Mark and I so that we can take you through the water treatment facility. But I just want to tell you, Mark has been with the city now, with the city of Dearborn for 25 years. He is a fantastic operator and he runs an amazing system up there and keeps it going. We have monies that were given to the city through the American Rescue Plan back through COVID of about $362,000. The idea was to purchase that third skid unit with some of those monies and some others, and then begin going down that path of installing it. In the amount of time that we have left for the American Rescue Plan, we need to allocate these funds towards projects by the end of December of this year. In the meantime, while we've been thinking about this plan and working towards it, we've also had some other things that have come up that were very expensive within our water treatment facility. Number one is what Justine was alluding to earlier, is the sodium hypochlorite system that has failed. This is what makes chlorine for us. We have a system in place that's backing us up just in case this happens. But we've had to replace that for the tune of a lot of dollars. That one in particular was which amount?
160.
Yeah, 160,000, something like that, and it has arrived, we didn't get it, it's sitting up at the water plant, so.
So that's something that came up. The other thing that came up also was the chlorine storage tank that we use after we make the chlorine began to leak from the bottom of it. And keep in mind, this system is 12, almost 13 years old now.
Yeah.
So these things and these items are starting to give way. And actually, and Mark won't say this, but he has actually gotten this system to run a little bit beyond some of the parts and individual parts and pieces shelf life. And has kept it going at a very economical pace. So the chlorine storage tank needs to be replaced, and that's a new one that we were just working with. It's gonna be somewhere around 12,000 plus 4,000 in shipping.
And that's been ordered also, it's probably about 6 weeks out, so I'd like to replace that and the generation system at the same time, so we're kind of waiting on that to show up before we start to do anything.
And then the third item that we really want to finish off, we're farther along than what I anticipated, but we still got a little ways to go, which is purchasing our radio read water meters. And this will have a huge impact on our customer service with folks, making sure that we're getting accurate water reads within our distribution system and enable us to detect leaks a lot more quickly, thus wasting less water. All the things Water Resources Division wants to see us doing to improve our system. So those three projects kind of come to a head, and those three projects are more shovel ready than the skid unit is at this time. Mark and I are still working towards the skid unit project. We have information from Milt Larson. He has come up with some qualification requirements and is working on a proposal to go out for companies to help us design and to do the engineering for the skid unit, the filtration unit that we need to install. So that's still moving forward. But with these more shovel-ready jobs that we have, plus some others that Mark would like to talk about, we would like to reallocate or allocate the ARPA monies to these three projects, plus a few of these others that Mark have, to spend that money by the December timeline, the end of December timeline, or excuse me, at least commit those dollars to being spent by that timeline. And then use our reserve monies that we have accrued in water to potentially work on the skid unit in the future, the near future. Also, there's some new grants that have just come out that we've been made aware of that we'd also like to incorporate some of these grant ideas to help us with that skid. The filtration system unit is about a $900,000 project. It's a big chunk of money. We're currently going through our water rate discussion as well, which those two are tied in together, because if we could get more water rights, then we're gonna have more need for the skid unit especially, and we'll have a better understanding. But this is still a project that Mark feels strongly about moving forward, just not right at the moment. So what we're looking for, and Mark has a little bit more information, is a consensus from the council that we head in this direction. Delay the skid unit proposal for a little while and move forward with these projects.
Yeah, there's just quite a few things up there that are gonna need replacement in the next year or two, and if we can use this money, then we won't have to take it out of a reserve fund, and then we can slowly keep going forward with the third skid unit as well, because we're not in a time frame where we can get that done before January, so. Like, for instance, there's a few different things, I mean, we gotta replace this generator out here that went bad, it's not repairable. So that's gonna be close to probably, what, $50,000, something in there. That we can use some of those funds for. We've got some compressors up at the water plant that need replaced. I was recommended to me that our water softener system be replaced, it's 13 years old. There's some IT and security updates that I do up there with our control specialist about every 2 years to make sure that we're up to date on all the top security stuff that's becoming a big deal in the water industry. We have a pressure reducing valve that connects us with the city of Warrenton that's almost 40 years old that we need to replace. It's got to be replaced. We've got a inline mixer that I need to get another one of those, because if that thing goes out, it's 10 years old, I gotta replace that, so it'd be nice to have a backup. There's all these things we can spend this money on and get it spent where it doesn't have to come out of our water reserve fund at the moment, so.
So from the council's perspective, do you have any questions for Mark and I about this concept?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just curious, how much money do you think you need for the radio read water meters?
What did we come up with, Justine?
66,000, 68,000. We need 200, about 200 more maybe in the ground and 50 for replacement.
So does that include the installation as well?
No, we're currently getting some quotes and stuff on installation because, I mean, as much as I'd like to send my crew out to replace water meters all day, every day, we just don't have the time to get it done. That's been one of our biggest things. We've tried to hire a couple of people in the past, it didn't work out. So we've got some help from our water supplier and the meter supplier that's gonna help us find some people that might be willing to install them for us.
70 or 60. So how many funds are available in the American Rescue Plan Act?
We started with about 362. With the projects that we have on board and going right at the moment, we're at about 250, which leaves us with about $112,000 left to spend, which would be used in those projects that Mark was mentioning.
Correct, including the generator, so I don't think we have any problem spending it before the December deadline.
So everything in water seems to be a little
It's
expensive.
expensive, so.
So if everything is gonna cost approximately 900,000, then where's the rest of the money gonna come from?
The skid unit which is a filtration unit.
Right.
Which is what we were initially heading towards,
Uh-huh.
is $900,000. We were going to use the ARPA money of 362, and then whatever was remaining would come out of our water reserve fund.
Okay.
So instead, what we're asking is we'd rather take care of these 3 projects that are in the hopper, plus about 3 others out of his list that he's got here. And with that, we would be able to spend those ARPA funds exactly how the federal government intended us to spend them on infrastructure having to do, and this is all infrastructure with water, including the generator that's over here that assists us with that. So we think it's a solid plan, and it will keep us out of trouble with the federal government and some funds.
Thank you.
And we are moving forward with that, with the 3rd skid unit, with our engineering company, and the first step on that would be to go out for proposals to get the engineering side done, because there's a lot that goes into it with the drawings and everything and controls, and I mean, it's not a simple project, so.
Do we get more ARPA funds next year?
No.
COVID related.
Yeah, it was funds to be used for water, sewer and broadband.
And we
So
don't
it's
want to lose this money and leave it on the table. If we could spend it, it would be ideal to get some of these things replaced without using our water reserve.
And then our other needs, we roll over into a request in December.
Okay, what do you need?
Just consensus that that's the direction that the city council approves upon. It's no specific project. We'll spend the monies, those pieces that we need to come to you with the bidding process. I think we've already done, so we're ready to go. Just consensus to say that we're on the right track and that you would like to continue to look at that skid unit in the future as well.
I consent. I'll make a motion for consensus.
Well. Yes?
Yes.
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 Looks like everyone's shaking their head, yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, that's good.
Thank you.
I just want you to know we're not just going out wasting money either. These are things we're going to have to buy and replace, so you might as well do it with this, so.
No matter where your head's at, spend their money.
Yeah.
Their money?
And these funds are moved, all of them into the water reserve fund in a special line item. So the budget committee's already approved the allocations of those for water infrastructure. We just think it's in the best interest of the council to know how our intent, correct and direction.
Makes sense.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Okay,
Thank you, Mark.
Yep, thank you.
all right. Goodbye.
Yeah, no. I gotta go check on the water plant first before I go home, so.
Okay, going back to the original list. Ordinance and resolutions, ordinance 942, section 6.0708, preservation removal of trees. GZO text amendments. You all have the copy in your estimated staff time. You've got the ordinance as written. Is there anyone going to speak to this? Is Garrett speaking?
Garrett is here and available for us.
Okay,
Good evening. So ordinance 942 that you have in front of you reflects some changes that were requested by city council in 2 October work sessions and the October general meeting. And without going through the whole history of the ordinance, I just want to highlight 3 themes. One is that we've had many opportunities for public engagement over the last 2 years in publicly noticed planning commission meetings and city council meetings and hearings. 2 is that the planning commission recommended an ordinance amendment that was really aimed at improving city staff's awareness of tree removals. And some of the changes that were made in the last couple of months based on city council's direction get us closer to that intent. Where previously there were some sort of blanket exemptions from obtaining a permit. Now there's a few more situations where applicants would be at least required to, notify the city that they're removing trees by coming in and asking for that permit. And some other changes in the last couple of months that go beyond the original discussions to protect a wider range of trees or require permits, for some larger trees or trees that have some unique characteristics or some unique value. So I'll just those are the sort of 3 themes of recent changes in history, and I'll go through a few of these in a little bit more detail from the memo. They're summarized in a table on the first page. The rest of the memo is the same as it was a month ago, and it just includes findings supporting the amendments as consistent with the comprehensive plan. But that table on the second and third page of the memo includes sort of the recent changes. So we moved some the invasive tree exemptions to section C, applicability. And in that section, we identified 3 specific species that are exempt because they're invasive or noxious or undesirable. And we couldn't find those 3 names on an easily referenced state list of noxious weeds. So we went ahead and named them. The definitions also include and establish the basis for protecting heritage trees and trees that are greater than 55 inches. And moving on to section C, applicability. No other changes there other than what I just mentioned. I think it's notable based on some of the public comments, just a reminder that our wetland protections, riparian protections, and beach and dune protections in the zoning ordinance protect trees from being removed in those areas separately from this section of the zoning ordinance that we're talking about. So, for example, in our 50-foot riparian buffer on Neocoxie Creek, tree removal is just prohibited. And these changes don't affect that. Okay, so in section D requirements, this is where we establish the permit requirements for major and minor tree removals. And there's a few important changes here, notably these situations where a major tree removal permit would typically be required, but it's really not, because there's a good reason to make it easier and more streamlined to remove trees. When a tree is approaching heights that are prohibited in the airport hazard overlay zone, when a tree is threatening the integrity of a septic system, where a tree needs to be removed for constructing a home, a driveway to a home, or other similar improvements. A major tree removal permit would not be required, but again, to satisfy the intent of improving staffs and the city's awareness of tree removals, a minor permit would be required. In emergency situations or tree hazard situations, a minor permit is required, but it can be obtained after the fact. And then finally, based on some discussion we had, we changed the replacement tree size considerations that Planning Commission can use if they decide that they want to require replacement trees for a major tree removal permit. And the intent of that was to make the replacement tree sizes more practical. And then it would be required anyway, whether we set it or not, but a major tree removal permit requires public notice and a hearing, similar to how a conditional use permit would be issued. And we did state that here in the ordinance based on your all's feedback. Section E, we changed, this is going back over a month, but so it's not new, but changed the requirement, or this is one of the criteria for issuing a major tree removal permit that the Planning Commission can use to permit tree removal is if a tree is diseased. Previously, in the draft, an arborist had to make that determination that the tree is diseased. And starting with the October draft and what you have in front of you, it can just be a tree care specialist instead of a certified arborist. And this is actually the only place in the ordinance, I think it's notable based on some of the written comments that came into City Council this month. This is the only place where a tree care specialist is referred to in the ordinance. And arborist, the word arborist and forester no longer appear anywhere. So arborists and foresters are not required for anything to get a permit. And like no kind of specialist or arborist is required in a hazard situation. It's just if you need a major tree removal permit and you're basing your reason for that the tree is diseased, a tree care specialist has to inform that determination. Some of these exceptions that I just discussed previously were in section F, and those were moved up to section D. And again, this isn't new to November, but we did include a section that would guide city decisions on establishing heritage trees based on their size, condition, and historical value. And in our last work session, City Council discussed wanting to clarify that when someone wants to remove a tree from the public right-of-way, for example, in front of their home, a permit is required to do that, like it would be required if it was completely on their lot. And so that's the summary of changes that have been done recently. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. There were 3 public comments that came in. One requested another hearing or noted that the last hearing was never closed. I will note that the last hearing was closed according to your minutes. And another from Deanna Mansell that mirrors her testimony several minutes ago, requesting that the city amend the, change the ordinance to address, to be able to compel neighboring property owners to remove trees that are threatening their neighbors' septic systems. And a third comment that took issue with arborists being required to justify tree removals. And I spoke to that a few minutes ago, that there's no part of the ordinance that requires an arborist to justify tree removals. So with that, I'll be here for questions, and thank you.
Barrett, so
Yes.
I'm looking at the existing ordinance. And I know we've made a lot of changes, so bear with me and have some patience with me if I miss this. But as it reads now, between D and E, now under E, it says major tree removal permit criteria. The granting of the major tree removal permit shall be based on a finding that at least one of the following criteria is met. And then it gives you 3 options. One of those options has to be met according to E in order for there to be a tree removal permit, because the word shall is there. So looking on the original ordinance, under criteria E, where it says the granting of a tree removal permit shall be based on a finding that at least one of the following criteria is met. And it gives you many more options, but one of the options that I am, if you can help me find, is in order to construct proposed improvements, including the placement of structures. Did we drop that somewhere?
Yeah, so we moved that into
Okay, I see it.
yeah, we moved it into section C, and it was originally a complete exemption. And in one of the last 2 city council discussions we had, it was noted that to more fully implement the planning commission's intention to improve the city's awareness of tree removals, that at least a minor tree removal permit be required as a part of those tree removals to make way for construction improvements. And it would be essentially the same process that we do anyway, which is when a building permit comes in, we require that they identify trees that meet the definition of tree anyway, and take a look at, if whether or not they're proposing to remove trees that they actually need to make way for their improvements, or that will likely be impacted anyway because they're so close to the proposed improvements, or if they're proposing to, remove trees that are really far away and are not necessary to make way for their improvements. So, under the proposed ordinance, we'd issue a minor tree removal permit in that situation, along with the building permit, and we'd enter it into our tracking system, so that we're aware and can, report back to y'all on some kind of data about tree removals over the prior year or 2 years when you ask for that info.
Okay.
So.
Instead of having it with, if it's just issued through a building permit, we wouldn't be able to keep track of that. Or we wouldn't have a system for it, so.
Dan, do you have any more? No? Anyone else have any other discussion? Want to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we adopt this latest iteration of the tree ordinance that's set forth by Garrett.
Ordinance 942.
Oh, 942, sir.
I'll second that.
Okay. Well, I think, is there any discussion? I mean, we have talked about this 5 different times. We should pretty much have all our discussion done, but does anyone have anything they want to discuss about this?
Yeah, I mean, we still haven't, so we've tried to make this ordinance the best that we can make it, but we have never talked about the need and whether this is the appropriate time or the appropriate way to do this. We haven't talked about the cost of this ordinance, whether our staff actually have the time to spend on doing this. The purpose of this started off as to count trees. And it's, people have made comparisons to cities like Bellingham, Washington, which I'm very familiar with, I'm from there. Bellingham, Washington has a population of about 90,000 people. And although it has revenue from retail sales tax, business and income tax, and property tax revenue, it's still operating with a $4 billion deficit. Cannon Beach has a budget that is 10 times our budget, and they actually had to hire a tree specialist to manage its program. Neither of those cities have septic challenges that we have. And so nobody has ever been able to answer me how we're adequately going to be able to enforce this. And I think our citizens are going to be very upset if we create a law and they're expecting somebody to be able to come out and enforce this law on a Saturday or Sunday, and there's nobody available to do it. And then looking at the estimated staff time to do all of this, to count trees. I mean, this doesn't even include, with the estimate here, it's over 2 weeks just to count trees, and that doesn't even include the time for the judge at $150 per hour. It seems to me that this is the kind of thing where we should go to our citizens and say, if this is something that you are interested in, and I'm still not convinced that we have an overwhelming number of citizens, as many hearings as we've had, we haven't had a bunch of people coming in here. In fact, the people that are approaching me on the street are very much opposed to this. I think the citizens should be asked, is this something you're going to be willing to pay for somebody to enforce this? And you start from that direction, and then you create a law that you can enforce. But it seems like we're creating a law that we're not going to enforce. It just seems unrealistic to me. It doesn't seem like a reasonable thing, especially when we've talked, I think it was Sharon that brought it up back during budgeting, that our cost to run our city government is fast outpacing the increases to run our government, fast outpacing our income. And with some of the things that we talked about in the LOC meeting about PERS and other things, I think that's going to continue to be a problem. And I do not feel comfortable at this point voting for anything that is going to take more staff time when that could end up costing us money and could force us closer to a levy that I don't feel comfortable doing it. If we're gonna have to someday go out for a levy, I'm gonna say I didn't add anything to this without your permission at any extra duty.
Okay,
So that's my position.
all right. Thank you for that. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Hey,
Okay, passes. All right, thank you. Let's move on. Anyone wishing to comment on new business has 3 minutes. Please raise your hand. Anyone on Zoom? None? Okay, anyone in the audience? All right, liquor license application. This is for Daughters. Everyone's looked over the application. Is there anything you need to add to this, Chad?
Nothing I need to add other than, the owner of the property, Megan, is here as well today. To answer your questions that we can't answer.
That you can't answer? Okay, Megan. On your application, it says you have 40 inside seating and 60 outside seating, but you only have 1 employee. How's that gonna work?
Yes, to get started, it's just going to be me managing through the winter. And frankly, with the budget that I have, my expectation is to initially open the half of the space, the commercial space that has the bar in it, with the expectation that by the spring, we will open the second half with additional seating and be able to hire additional staff members to support me.
I see, and you're a neighborhood cafe
Exactly.
with a bar.
The bar is built in, yes.
Okay.
It does facilitate counter service, I think will be central to the service format.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Megan?
Will you be serving just wine and beer, or will there be hard alcohol?
The plan is not to have hard alcohol at this time, I'm just applying for a bid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions? All right. Anyone want to make a motion?
I would like to move that we approve Daughters liquor license application.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Megan, you have a recommendation from the council.
I'm incredibly appreciative.
No problem. All right, now, we're here for the request for funds for police vehicle rifle mounts. Sergeant.
Yes, sir, thank you. So, I'm sure the council is aware, and probably most people in this room, Gearhart Police Department has 3 patrol rifles now. The issue we have is securing the rifles in our vehicles. We can't just leave them in there, so we just break the window and take them. So we need our locking vehicle mounts to be able to transport them effectively. We got a quote from Day Wireless. The amount is $3,476 to outfit all 3 vehicles. And what we would like from the council is approval to take that amount of money from our new vehicle fund that already exists. We get a new vehicle every 3 years essentially at the police department. And we'd like to take the money from that account and use that to outfit our 3 current vehicles with these amounts so we can appropriately store the rifles.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm sorry, this might sound really stupid, but how does this work? How does a rifle mount work that would be so safe?
Essentially, it works on an electronic system, so you have to be able to either press a button, which will be hidden somewhere in the vehicle, to unlock the rifle, or have a physical key to do it. So otherwise, you can't just grab it and take it because it's secured, it's locked in.
Will people be able to see the rifles from outside the vehicle?
Not with any sort of great ease at this point. We're planning on putting them in the trunk.
Okay, Thank you.
Can you, this is an ignorant question, can you explain why you would need rifles versus your, I don't even know what kind of gun that is that you have?
A pistol?
Yeah.
Essentially, the entire purpose of a rifle is, I'll make a quick comparison for you. When you're firing a pistol, essentially what you have are two hand on the weapon in front of yourself like this. You have 2 points of contact. And of course, they're extremely lightweight and it's held only in your hands. It's very easy to induce some sort of manipulation to the weapon, whether it be through your hands, your body movement, your breathing. It's very hard to shoot a pistol accurately under pressure. A rifle is a larger weapon, has more points of contact, both your hand, your shoulder, your cheek resting on it. And also you have 2 point slings, which add 2 more points of contact. And with the additional weight of the weapon, it's much easier to use effectively if it's ever needed. And not only that, the rounds they use are completely different. The 9mm round does not have the ballistic capability as a 5.56 round from a rifle.
Have you, so to this point, you all have not had rifles, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and have you had instances where you wish that you had a rifle?
Many.
There was a woman up in the reserve, wasn't she on drugs and with a rifle on the roof, or was it a guy?
In the reserve? Are you thinking of the Sunset Beach
They probably
incident?
is.
There's a woman who broke into a house and managed to get her hands on a weapon inside the house.
Right, okay.
And yeah, now more extended range, if we're talking about 50 yards, a rifle is far more effective for that sort of range.
I asked Chad this today. How come you guys are going for rifles instead of street sweepers?
Shotguns.
Slug double hot, slug double hot, slug double hot.
So there are a couple main reasons why most police departments do that nowadays. One of them is over penetration. The 5.56 round is very energetic, and when it hits a wall, it tends to just sort of break apart. Shotgun rounds do not do that. They hit a wall and they just keep going until their energy is expended. So they're a little more unsafe. The other issue is more precise fire out of a rifle. When you fire a rifle, you fire one round, you know where it's going. If you fire double out buckshot, you have 9 projectiles or 12, depending on the size of your round. It just kind of spreads as it pleases.
Yeah, it spreads for every foot out, it spreads about an inch, so you're 12 feet out and you've got spread kind of like that.
And the issue for that, of course, is one thing we're talking about, like shooting at 50 yards, hard with a pistol, easy with a rifle. You don't know if any of your pellets are even going toward your target at 50 yards anymore because you can go on buckshot.
So do you see this as somewhat self-protection for you guys?
No, I see this more as something that could be needed if we ever have a very unfortunate circumstance where we may have like a shooting in an open area. It's like in the downtown core of the city, out in the woods, God forbid a school, because we may not have a school in the city limits anymore, but if a shooting like that does happen, we are going and we should have a better weapon for the job.
I just was thinking since you've got a longer range rifle as opposed to your pistol, that gives you guys potentially more protection for yourselves.
Potentially, that's not our primary purpose. No.
But it's also safer for us too, because a handgun is not as accurate at long distances as a rifle. Obviously, the longer the barrel, the safer it is. And the common thinking in law enforcement is your handgun gets you out of the firefight you weren't expecting. You're carrying it for the emergency situation. But if you're going into a situation where you know there's going to be a shooting, then you want to choose the weapon that's more accurate so that you don't end up missing your target and hitting some unintended target. Like Sergeant Gooding, was that his name? The Sergeant.
Back at 60, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Sergeant? I make a motion to approve the chief's request for reserve funds up to $3,500 to purchase and install Rifle Mountain Range patrol vehicle.
I said,
Okay, any discussion? Thank you for not having any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Sergeant. All right. City Council's Public Safety Building Guiding Principles. And it's a simple motion of consensus. It's on the back. Anyone got any heartburn with these?
I agree.
I think we all agree on this.
Okay, and we're all,
yes,
okay, we've all got a yes, so that all passes with flying colors.
Thank you. We'll use those in the upcoming meetings as well and make the public aware of that.
Yes. Do you want to read it right now, or do you want to wait until the next meeting, please? Okay, here we're going into new business, and it's the Crest Planning IGA renewal. And this is to keep our city planner here and employed by us. Is there anything else you want to put on us, Chad, with that?
No, this is similar to the initial agreement that we have with Garrett. Garrett is actually employed by Crest. And they invoice us for the hours that he uses. We feel that we're getting a very good deal from Mr. Garrett. And this will help cover the expenses for the next, this agreement will help justify and understand the expenses for the next 2 years. And we have budgeted for this in the previous budget and, excuse me, the current budget that we are in now. We have funds in there for that. So this is continuing business as is, which staff believes is working very well.
Does anyone have any questions for Chad about this agreement? You may make a motion anytime you want.
I move that the city enter into the IGA with Crest as indicated in this memo from 11/6/2024.
second,
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Vote passed.
Good job.
Gotcha.
Last meeting,
You can learn.
you got the last.
Done. Council concerns, anyone got a concern they want to express right now in a very short fashion?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just wanted to thank, I don't have a concern, I just want to thank city council, I enjoyed serving with them. And I wanted to say that, Mayor, you're one of the most honest people that I've ever met, and that I love your no nonsense attitude. And Miss Sharon, I appreciate that you question things so much, you just don't go for the status quo. You just want to know, and I appreciate that so much. Dana, I've learned a lot from you and from your experience, so thank you. Now, Preston. When you don't agree with somebody, you really like to yell. You've yelled at our attorney, you've yelled at our mayor, you've yelled at me. But when you're not yelling, you're a good counselor. You know, the history of this, of your work, which is so important. And when you, like I said, when you're not yelling, you're a good counselor and I consider you my friend. So thank you for serving. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Okay, Preston, you got anything to concern?
Oh.
Sharon?
I have two things to say. Number one, I want to thank Garrett for all the hard work that he put into the tree ordinance, for sticking with us on it. I thought he did a really good job. And I just want to say, Rita, oh, really gonna miss you. Oh, well, we're neighbors, so I know. But yeah, thank you. That means a lot to me. That's.
Dana?
Yeah, just the two things, talk about water infrastructure, the list next time. And also, now that elections are done, it's time for us to get with Jabati and start making sure that he's pushing on the recreational immunity, making sure that there's a permanent fix. They recommended that we all write to him, but I don't think we all need to write to him.
I'll be
Sorry,
meeting with them
sorry.
in January.
Well, I'll probably be talking with him before then too, so but if anybody else runs into him, remind him.
Okay, I don't have a concern, I just want to thank everyone who supported me in this election. It's good to be voted in as mayor, as appointed. Caused so many heartaches for some people. And next month, we'll have ex-mayor Paulina up here at the table. So, thank you very much. I'll have a motion to dismiss or end the
I'll make a
meeting.
motion to end the meeting.
I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Back home.
No.